And if we get convicted of something and we use all our head knowledge, it's never going to influence or change anybody. Hello, welcome to Walk Right, a Path to Healing. I am Steve, your host, and I am super thrilled that you are here with us today. Hey, this devotional podcast is designed to empower you on your path to healing, on your spiritual journey with Jesus, and I just hope that it lifts your spirits today. I'm also hopeful that by the end of each episode, your heart's a little bit bigger and you know a little bit more about Jesus Christ. So let's get started and discover how we can walk right towards a path of living and loving in the kingdom today. And today's episode is called, Are You a Know-It-All? Are you a know-it-all? I was a know-it-all, but are you a know-it-all? And we're going to be in 1 Corinthians today, chapter 8, verses 2 and 3. But before we make our way over there, of course, we start every podcast with a story. So here is your story. So back when I was a pastor and went out and planted a church, I got into ministry and had to start to just study. Because in my world of codependency, I was never good enough and I had to put my validation in everybody else. So in order for me to be a good minister, I had to know everything. I had to know the Bible, I had to know all the verses, I had to know about Jesus, and I had to have all this knowledge because that way I would have been important and felt needed and wanted. So I spent a lot of time not just doing the regular school work, but just a lot of time just studying the Bible. And I would love to just share this knowledge with people. And I would feel like I'm helping them just because I know where to go in the Bible and I know what it meant and I knew what God was trying to say here and Jesus was trying to say here. And, I just had this great feeling of validation and head knowledge. I would go home and belittle my wife with my words. I would belittle my kids with my words. And I wasn't the nicest all the time because during all this ministry, we were hiding that my wife was a continued pain medication addict. And with my codependency trying to fix her, we kept this a secret and we didn't know how to handle these emotions and we would take it out on each other and we would take it out on our kids and they would see me at church loving on other people and they would see me showing how great God is and how much we love God and what Jesus did for us. And then I would go home and I would just not be that person because then it would be back to you're going to stop taking medicine and the addiction, didn't know how to handle it. So I'd yell at the kids and no kids, you're doing wrong. And, when their room was a mess, I'd yell at them, oh, you're lazy and this and that because I just didn't know how to process and handle all this stuff. But I could speak everything about the Bible to them, and I can tell them how great Jesus was, and I can show where Jesus said to do this, this, and this, and how they should honor their parents, and this, and this, and this. And it's no wonder that today my kids don't have a close relationship with God because of the way I portrayed him. But man, I knew a lot about him. That's funny, huh? Why that with all the knowledge I have that they weren't filled with God because of the knowledge. Because what they saw was knowledge. They didn't see a known relationship with God. They just saw the knowledge. They just saw Dad doing another good job. Because Dad did a good job at everything he did because he needed validation in everything he did. I was a know-it-all that didn't know nothing. And that brings me to the verse today, 1 Corinthians chapters 8, verse 2 and 3, it says, if anyone thinks of himself as a know-it-all, he still has a lot to learn. But if a person passionately loves God, he will possess the knowledge of God. So what this chapter 8 is really talking about is concerning food that was sacrificed as offering to idols in the temples. And basically, Paul is saying that there's people out there that think that they know all about this. and that they know how to handle all this. And it goes on further to say that, while they're doing all this, there's maybe some unbelievers or young people coming up in Corinth that are trying to understand who God is and understand this. And when they see what's going on, they may fall into idol worship because of what so-called know-it-all people are doing. So they may know that God was the true God, and they knew that eating this meat offered to other idols was okay with them. What happens when an unbeliever or a new believer sees somebody eating this meat that was offered to another god outside of the true God? Be kind of confusing, right? And basically, in a nutshell, that's what Paul's saying. Now, I can be a Mr. Know-It-All and dive deep into this and let you know that back then there was the god of Neptune and the god of Venus and, all these other idols that people were worshiping to. And I can get all headstrong and knowledgeable on you on that, but I won't. Because if anyone thinks himself as a know-it-all, he still has a lot to learn. Another version, now mine is out of the Passion Translation, but another way this verse reads is, if anyone imagines that he knows something, he does not yet know as he ought to know. But if anyone loves God, he is known by God. If anyone imagines that he knows something, he does not yet know as he ought to know. Yeah. If you think you're a know-it-all, you still have a lot to learn. And so did I. Because I had all this knowledge and I knew all about it, but my kids saw something different. So I'm sure that impacted the way that they viewed God, just like the way I viewed God when my earthly father treated me. Because we kind of view God as the closest thing to our father, right? Well, I had a father who didn't love me. I had a father who didn't think I was good enough, who tolerated me, blah, blah, blah. Oh, that's the way I felt. So when you're going through the process of trying to see God, but you see it through the lens of how you viewed your father, it's going to get complicated. So I can understand that my kids, even though I rattled everything off I knew about God, and I rattled up all this important stuff about the knowledge that I knew, they didn't see the love that was needed. You see, because we have to let love define our convictions, not our head knowledge. And if we get convicted of something and we use all our head knowledge, it's never going to influence or change anybody. And what I mean by that is, are you at the office just rattling off stuff out of the Bible and using Jesus to win an argument? Or are you being Jesus at the office? And what I was doing was I was rattling off and using Jesus to try to win validation from people that thought I was important. Never letting love define the convictions that I had for them. It was just all head knowledge. So when he says, if anyone imagines that he knows something, it suggests a caution against our arrogance. Because when we have arrogance and we think we know a lot, that turns what? Into pride. And we become prideful. And when there's much debate regarding food offered to idols, and many believed that they had a deep understanding of the issue, they were completely wrong, because what the people in Corinth under them that were knowing about the true God or trying to learn about the true God were getting confused and could get led into different idol worship because of the messages. And while you think you knew everything about it, you were actually hurting people. Just like I think I knew everything about God and Jesus, but I was hurting my family. He does not yet know as he ought to know. You have more to learn. This points that true knowledge is not just about accumulation of what you know and the facts that you can produce out of the Bible to win an argument. There's a depth and humility that comes with genuine, fully understanding of who God is and where you are in that place. And coming from that place will then encourage believers to recognize that they may not fully understand and grasp the complexities of faith either. But just by being a know-it-all, you have a lot more to learn. And it goes on in verse 3, but if a person passionately loves God, he shifts the focus from knowledge here to now love. And he's saying that the love for God is central to a believer's life. It's not the knowledge. It's the transition of the love. For the longest time, I still love to learn about God. I still love to learn about the history. I love to learn about Jesus. I love to learn about the culture and what was going on. It just fascinates me. I love it. And I can rattle off so many different things. And as you can see with the books here, I got tons of books that I'm always reading and digging in and trying to, translate what the verses really meant and break them down. And I love doing that. But I have to catch myself and I have to pray. And I write in my journal, Father, I love knowing about you, but I need to know you. I need to know who you are. I don't want to be a know-it-all. I have to know your love, and I need your love to fulfill me so I can go out and do stuff like this with the knowledge, but the passion because of the love that pushes it. He will possess the knowledge of God. And in the other verse I said, in which it's translated that way, he is known by God. You are known by God. Because you have a relationship with him. You don't just know about him. You see, in my past life, I love live music. And I can show you a picture of me standing next to Steven Tyler and Joe Perry of Aerosmith. I got a picture, our arms around each other. And I know a lot of stuff about Aerosmith. And I can rattle off so much trivia about Aerosmith. And I can tell you that I know Steven Tyler. And you'd probably believe me because I have the picture and I have all this knowledge of Aerosmith and Steven Tyler and everything he's done. I don't know him. I don't know him at all. I just took a picture with him and I have a lot of knowledge about him. And it's the same thing with Jesus. There's a lot of people out there that new believers fall into because they know a lot about Jesus, but that person telling them about Jesus doesn't show any of the qualities of Jesus and doesn't portray any of that abundant life and any of that abundant living and any of that abundant love. They're just headstrong and know what they know about the Bible. And they go home and they're still complete, untransformed jerks. There are so many people in the church today that are just like that. And I'm not saying that out of condemnation. I'm saying that out of, that's why this ministry is here, to help people become unstuck from any unhealthy habit, become unstuck from any religious habit, become unstuck from that. Because there's so much more than gaining a ticket to go to heaven and then living a life that's non-transformed. That is not the gospel, and that is not what all this is designed for. But if anybody loves God, he's known by God. He's known by him. That's a profound statement. And that's what I always want to make sure that we always are doing. I could study every single day with all these books and everything, and if I don't know him, it's a waste of time. I don't want to be a know-it-all. And hopefully you don't either. And when you listen to these episodes, I'm hoping that you're seeing that there's a lot of knowledge that I give about God and about the Bible, but it's all through that passion. It's all through that love. It's all through that comes out. I'm hoping that he knows me enough that he's using me. And it's not me speaking, it's the Spirit. Because I'm really not that smart. But I don't want to act like a know-it-all either. I really don't. And I love going to a verse that is so mistranslated today. It's just so horrible. And people use it for fear, and people use it to scare people. And I hate it with a passion, and so does God. Where Jesus says, "Depart from me, I never knew you." Gosh. Jesus is saying, "Depart from me, I never knew you." The person that's doing all the works, the person that has the head knowledge, the person that's trying to keep righteousness, the person that's trying to keep religion, the person that's trying to keep the law, the person that's trying to be perfect and knows all this stuff and has all this pride and righteousness because of everything they know. Depart from me, because that is not the identity I created you to be. I know the other identity that I'm dying for, that my blood is shedding for. I know that identity, and that's the one I want to be with. Not your super smart, egotistical works you, but the one that I created that surrenders, that knows abundant life, that knows love passionately. That's the one I know. So are you know-it-all? Or do you want to be known by him? I want to thank you for joining me on this journey of Walk Right, a Path to Healing today. I hope you enjoyed the episode. Would you please share it with somebody that maybe needs to hear it and maybe needs to be encouraged by it? If you found value in this episode and you're watching it on YouTube, will you please like, subscribe? It really helps me out. It helps get the videos out there. And it helps the ministry overall by advancing it through the algorithm and all that other goofy stuff that's out there that I don't really understand about. I'm not a know-it-all about that. But subscribe so you never miss an episode anyway. And join us next time for more inspiring stories and devotionals and your wacky host, me, Steve. And until then, please keep walking right. And may your path be filled with hope and purpose. And always, don't go away without knowing this. You are loved. You are holy. I'll see you in the next episode. God bless.